Movie adaptations of video games are renowned for being, well, not very good. You could also say the same thing about movies that are made into video games. They never seem to quite get the transition right. Now, there are some video game movies out there that weren't too bad. You might actually call them guilty pleasures, but there are some truly awful ones as well that have strayed too far away from the source material and altered it in such a way to suit the movie. But recently Nintendo and Illumination released a trailer for their new upcoming CGI movie, which is based on one of the most successful video game characters of all time. And that movie is Super Mario Bros. And in my opinion, judging by the trailer, it may be the best video game movie we have ever seen. And to beat it may be a challenge. Now, before we talk about the Super Mario Bros. Trailer, I would like to talk about the Sonic movies that were released not long ago, which I actually enjoyed, but I did have a few gripes with. Number one, Sonic the Hedgehog isn't based in his world. You see him in his world for maybe a minute or two at the beginning of the film, and then before you know it, he's transported to Earth, and then the rest of the movie takes place on Earth around human characters, live action actors. Now, in my opinion, I think the movies would have been better if they were just solely based in Sonic's world. If you hadn't brought him to Earth but kept him in his own world with his own characters, and even if that means just keeping it CGI all the way through, I think it would have been a better movie. By bringing Sonic into the real world, we're introduced to human characters and their story, which I'm not really that invested in, I'm not really that bothered about, and you're kind of forced to follow their story as well as Sonic, where really I would just prefer to concentrate on Sonic's story. This becomes more apparent to me in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, where we're forced to follow the wedding storyline. And to be honest, I couldn't care less about the wedding, I couldn't care less about the characters. In my opinion, that whole scene could have just been cut from the movie and it wouldn't have affected the story at all. Because in my opinion, this is a Sonic film. We've paid our money to come and see Sonic the Hedgehog and friends. The only human actor that I did enjoy was Jim Carrey, who played Dr. Robotnik or Eggman, and he was actually very good in the role and very entertaining. But once again, he is a character from that storyline. I still think it would have been better if it was full CGI. But after watching the Super Mario Bros. Trailer, it really does look like they've gone in the complete opposite direction to the Sonic movie, and that may be for the best. It does look like it is going to be the most faithful video game movie we have ever seen. As soon as the trailer starts, Mario steps out into an arena and goes up against none other than Donkey Kong himself, and there are so many callbacks on screen to that original game from 1981 where Mario actually debuted. Now, originally Donkey Kong was going to be a Popeye game, but Nintendo had some issues trying to get the rights for Popeye, and so they changed the main character from Popeye to a little man they called Jumpman. Later on in 1985, with the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System, Jumpman was introduced into his very own game. He was renamed Mario, and that game was called Super Mario Bros. What I think is great about this trailer is that every single character you see on screen looks as though they have been pulled directly from the video games themselves. It really is, and I can't say this enough, it really does look like it may be the best adaptation of a video game movie we have ever had. And it looks as though they've took lots of familiar classic gameplay elements from the game and put it into this movie with little regard for whether it makes sense or not.
Okay, so these bricks are just floating here? I love these pipes.
Which is great. They've took these aspects of the game, brought it into the movie, and made it work for the movie instead of making the movie work for the game, which is what you normally get from these kind of films. Whether that being floating blocks that give you coins when you hit them, to floating moving platforms that many of us have fallen off whilst playing our favourite Mario games. There's also the very familiar dangerous obstacles that you will find throughout the game and characters that have been transported into this movie perfectly. Whether that being the flying fish enemies or the big bullets. And at one point you even see Mario wearing the raccoon suit or the Tanuki suit from Super Mario Bros. 3. But I think my absolute favourite part of this trailer is the inclusion of a Mario Kart race, which looks like it's been taken directly from the game, and it looks amazing. It looks as though they have literally taken everything beloved about this franchise and used it at some point in this movie and set it firmly within its own world and not within ours. And for that reason, and judging purely off the trailer and the short clips that have been released, I predict that this will be the definitive video game movie of all time. After all, I'm sure you'll agree, it can't be worse than the 1993 version. Until next time, I'll see you again.